You may be wondering what a distinctly non-Arctic United States Senator is doing here. I represent the state of Rhode Island, and the answer is twofold: oceans and climate. We are a small state, Rhode Island. We have a lot of coastline, and the current predictions are that we're going to have to redraw the map of my state. Probably in my lifetime, for sure in my children's lifetime, because we've been so irresponsible about dealing with climate. And of course, it's not just the sea level rise piece, it's also the acidification and the changing fisheries and all of that. I get a lot of this at home because my wife is a marine scientist, so I actually know what a pteropod is, and even how to spell it, and what its role in the food chain is. And off the Pacific Northwest of the US, several years ago, studies showed that more than half of the pteropods had what the scientists called severe shell damage. Severe shell damage because of acidification. So there are many, many threats in the oceans, and we really need to take them seriously. And I wanted to share with you what is going on in Washington on climate. And I know this is a bit of an acrobatic leap to try to go from where we are right now to being ready for Glasgow just a few weeks from now. And there are a lot of uncertainties that we have to resolve in a hurry. But I think we're going to do pretty well. First, on the executive side, having John Kerry as the climate emissary is a big deal. We know him in the Senate. We trust him in the Senate. He made oceans and climate a huge priority as Secretary of State. And so to have him leading internationally really matters. We're back in the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is probably, as the American advertisement says, my grandfather's Oldsmobile, and not what we need right now. Glasgow is going to produce what we need right now, but getting back in sends a really important signal. We also see the national security establishment of the United States, both in the intelligence side and in the military side, talking about the national security implications of climate change, which are many, numerous, dire, and avoidable if we're smart. And from the national security side to the financial security side, we are seeing the U.S. Federal Reserve System and the major regulators stepping up to their responsibilities to protect against what essentially every sovereign bank, every knowledgeable economist is predicting will likely be a pretty significant economic crash if we keep going on our course, whether it's the crash in property values along coastlines that Freddie Mac warns us about, or whether it's the carbon bubble bursting and taking the economy with it worldwide, which pretty much every central bank warns us about. So there's a new level of seriousness in the administration, and it's widespread. It's not just here and there. It's very much across the whole of government. So what are we trying to do in the Senate in the next few weeks? There are basically 5 components that we're working with, key components. And several of them were advanced by the Biden administration. The Biden 2 top modalities of dealing with climate change were a green energy tax package, which we have supported in the Senate, which has actually been written up, drafted, and passed out of the Senate Finance Committee, which I sit on. So that's done. We're just waiting to have the rest of the agreement come together so that we can implement it. But that's kind of put it on the shelf of things that are done and ready to go. The second big piece that President Biden pushed for was originally a clean electricity standard that morphed into a clean electricity power program and that is stuck in the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which is chaired by Senator Manchin of West Virginia, and its fate is at this point, I would say, uncertain. Which takes us to the third piece, which is border adjustment. The White House has announced that it will support a border adjustment mechanism. I don't know yet whether they're going to support the EU CBAM or whether they're going to use a carbon price as the denominator, or whether they're going to use industry carbon density as the rather awkward denominator. But we don't need to do much about that in the Senate, because that's very much an executive branch phenomenon. As President Trump showed, a president has enormous unilateral authority in the tariff and trade world to use for good or ill. In this case, a good border adjustment, ideally coordinated with the EU CBAM in some useful way, would be very valuable. So I think that's underway, and that leaves us with the last two pieces. Piece one is a methane pollution fee, a charge on leakage. One thing we know about this is that the estimates are, we have about 4 modelers working on all this stuff. We're not just making this up as we go along. The estimates are that the methane fee will dramatically reduce methane leakage. That the industry is perfectly capable of ending the methane leakage now, they just don't have the economic incentive. You give them the economic incentive, and there's a very dramatic reduction in methane leakage. And of course, as any pollution fee, it's amenable to border adjustment. So it can propagate around the world quite rapidly, going viral in the very best sense. And the methane fee becomes instantly the 3rd strongest intervention in the Biden portfolio of climate interventions. And I'll close with the last one, which is the big one. If we can get this passed, it becomes the most consequential climate intervention in the Biden portfolio, and that is a pollution fee on carbon emissions. Again, if we can do it, it has the biggest emissions effect. We've negotiated with the White House on what an acceptable one might look like. They have not yet signed off that they approve and will support it, but they've at least gone into neutral, and we're working with them on getting it done. And the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee has said that he is going to get it into the Finance Committee's reconciliation package. And that's a very important gateway. If we can get through that gateway, the other gateways become much easier to get through, and I'm determined to make that happen. Again, as a pollution fee, it's amenable to border adjustment, and that means it can go viral, and we can create rapidly a global solution to solve this global problem. So that's a lot to do between now and October 31st. But a lot of the pieces have been quietly put into place. So it's not like we're actually starting at zero. It's just a question of wrapping this up and closing the deal. And those of you who are parliamentarians know that that's not easy, but it's doable. So thank you for hearing me out, and I'm happy to take a couple of questions. I don't know how much time I took. Mr. President?
Thank you very much. Great.